am I going to have to take care of this person too on my salary?
You're listening to Relationship Renegade, the podcast that's breaking through the myths and sharing the truths about relationships. I'm on here with my girl, Mia Terrazas. How are you?
What's up? I'm back.
So it must be the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Good. We're continuing our conversation where we're talking about money. Specifically today, for all you cool cats out there. No, just
and kittens.
Cool cats and kittens. We're talking about dating and money.
Ooh, yeah.
Dating and money, right? This is part of the series that we've been doing all month. Just relationships and money in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does it do? How much does it matter? Should it even matter? Why? We just keep coming up with a lot more questions. The conversation has just been continuing to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we'll just do the same thing we've been doing, and we're just talking about dating now.
Mm-hmm.
What does money do in a dating relationship? How does it show up? Should it matter? I guess, Mia, let's just start wherever we feel most comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, Pod Squad, as we know, I pride myself at this time in this season as the resident single. And I feel like this has come up quite a bit. And I feel like in some ways when you're single or, where a lot of your friends or family are married and you're kind of the single one, you kind of have a lot of like a blank slate, a fresh start as it relates to a partner. And before you get to some of that, the things with traditionally, you get to some of those things where marriage comes into play or children and things like that, the merging of assets. So you kind of have this blank slate. And it's just so interesting because finances, even while dating, creeps in there.
Yeah.
Even to start, where are you going to eat?
Oh, I'll tell you something. It's a good thing that when I was dating, I mean, my wife and I, we still date now, but when we first
I
started,
love that.
we were both broke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if I remember when we first started talking, though, it was nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually remembering some of that now, because if you say somewhere that's like too cheap or too small, that can ruin things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, yeah, I'm just
It's taking you back.
yeah, I'm just glad that we were on similar planes, like just kind of some broke, college students,
Yeah.
and we were okay with that.
Yeah. And I think, before we hit record, I was saying, I think where you're at in life has something to do with it. I think when you're dating as like a high school student or something, you're just any time spent with that person that your parents allow is like valuable time, or, basketball games and, things like that. And then college is a different season. And like you're saying, like you're kind of in the same boat with a lot of different people. You're kind of grinding it out. Maybe you have a job, maybe, things start to be more of an influence, I think. Um, and then you get older and you get to be my age. And then you're like,
Yeah.
and then things start to have some weight to them. So I think to myself in my own experiences of dating and my own finances, like, you being single and being able to kind of care for yourself after a certain amount of time, you don't want to wreck that you know, you don't, at least I don't. And I work hard for where I'm at, and um, had to make my own little sacrifices along the way. And granted, I know my situation
Right.
is different. I don't want to minimize that, but it does creep in there, and you think, am I going to have to take care of this person too on my salary? Can they contribute to this, like looking forward or
Mm-hmm.
moving forward? And I think at a certain season or certain age in your life, you're kind of in a at least for me, in a very general, stereotypical, traditional sense. I'm going to put that out there too, that there's this um, idea that you are in your career, and so finances and money and things like that, like who you bring into it and who you want to move on with your life with, would either kind of be would elevate, level you up a little.
Right. Right. Like so when Herdine and I started dating,
Mm-hmm.
this is years ago now. Um, I don't. Neither of us had much of a credit score to brag about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we it just, if it was there, it was there. If not, we didn't care. Because I mean, again, when you're young, who cares about that stuff? Not
Mm-hmm.
that we shouldn't have. You know, we clearly should have been probably thinking more about it than we did. But
Mm-hmm.
it just it was what it was. You know.
Right.
Um, Now I must say, if ever I were to find myself in a dating situation, you know how you hear people talking about credit scores?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be a bit more interested in what her score is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you would, yeah. I mean, you don't think too much about credit scores when you're, I don't know, in general, I guess, in some ways, but I feel like when you're trying to establish something or move forward, and you can be really held back by someone's poor credit score, or sometimes that's synonymous with a lot of debt. Not all the
Right.
time, but you know, that can happen. And do you, as the person that's, you know, done whatever they can to kind of get to a good place or have some debt, that's taking on someone else's too.
Mm-hmm.
Or just putting yourself in a position where, you know, you, I guess, and if things do get more serious when you're dating, maybe you kind of overlook it a little bit, but it does come up. Like, can I be okay with this with children? Do I want this with
Oh, I
children?
oh, I think it's a constant.
Yeah. And so it gets to a point where I guess money can sometimes matter. And
Sometimes.
sometimes it does. And it's just, I don't know. I don't consciously think about it when I'm like using my app dating or
Mm.
whatever. It's not something I'm like, ooh, how much does this person make? You know, but I think when people ask, what do you do?
Well,
They
yeah,
want
it's
to
part of it.
they want to know, what do you make?
But I'll tell you this, Mia, right? So you're not as conscious of it when you're sifting through your
Your
app,
apps.
right?
Yeah.
Your apps.
Or maybe at a bar.
But here's the thing. Some people are.
Yeah.
Some people, that's just like where they start. And there are many reasons for that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whether how they grew up, or like exactly what we're talking about. They are not looking to connect or link up or be attached to anyone who's going to pull them backwards. I know people who've used that exact word,
Mm.
that wording. They said they don't date a lot. They are single, okay,
Mm-hmm.
not married,
Mm-hmm.
simply because what they've attained in their life, they feel like bringing someone in there would be somewhat of a hindrance.
Um, I have also heard that with an older gentleman friend.
Oh, and it's interesting because that's the demographic of one of the friends I'm talking about here.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's specific. Like when you're older,
Mm-hmm.
and you've worked 20, 30 years, or maybe you're not, even if you didn't work that long, but you're at a point where, you're not thinking about or worrying about bills.
Mm-hmm.
Like, from month to month what your situation is going to look like.
Right.
Clearly, anybody you bring in there is going to mess that up.
Right.
And sometimes it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you accept it, but if you've been through some stuff, like if you've been through some bankruptcies that you had to clean up,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you've like I'm talking about been through some shit, the last thing you want is for a relationship to derail you.
Right. And I think too, just even in the beginning stages of dating, like there's a whole courting thing that goes on. And I mean, for some, I don't know about these days, but there's this whole courting thing that, goes on where um, there's money that goes into dating.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like, I mean, either way you spin it, like even if you were to just meet at a garden to do a walk, like you might be like, oh, do you want to continue this and grab coffee?
Mm.
Do you want to grab a drink? Do you want to go see a movie? Like so much of dating is social, and not, it doesn't all have to be money, but I mean, let's face the facts, a lot of it is.
Yeah, you definitely need money to date. Now, there is a whole segment of the population as far as this whole dating while broke,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to say it's okay when you're young,
Mm-hmm.
um, but as you get older, I don't know that it's as okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Um, I'm just like, as I'm sitting, I'm glad that I'm not in that kind of situation, and where I'm having to like date again, and again, knock on wood,
Mm-hmm.
anything can happen, but I don't foresee that for me.
Yeah.
But I just feel for people in that situation now.
Well, thanks. We really needed that.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It's
tough.
tough out there.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it
Mm-hmm.
all the time, but it definitely can be. I mean, it's just so, and I'll say this, it's a lot more it's conventional, but it's also sometimes unconventional with dating and what people do for a living now these days. Like, just because you're a YouTube creator doesn't necessarily mean you're not making any money.
Mm-hmm.
um Someone could say, I'm an entrepreneur, and back in the day, you know when these apps first came out, self-employed and entrepreneur were just a nice way of saying you're not making any money,
Right.
where now that's like a legitimate thing. Maybe self-employed means they have their own business, or they're a creator of some sort that's doing really well. And so it can be not very telling when you're asking, like, what do you do for a living? It's not necessarily synonymous with how much you're earning.
Hi, we are the Mercier kids. Like what you hear so far?
Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe now.
This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
So in a new dating relationship,
Mm-hmm.
how much does one disclose?
Good question. I mean, I haven't been in one of those in a long time. But I feel like, um, in my personal experience with dating, like I was kind of alluding to at the very beginning, like, you talk to the person and you see what they do for a living, how their schedule's like, whatever. And then you pick a place to eat, or you pick a place, or they pick a place. And after a couple dates, you can kind of, based on what places they're picking, and even if it's a little dive bar, how did they get to their dive bar? Like, are they on a boat and that's where they go? Because I've had that happen. I'd be like, oh gosh, like a little dive bar. Like, I mean, I'm cool with that. I like little local places. And I realized like, oh, that's where they go because it's close to the water and they can put their boat up there.
Okay.
So you know what I'm saying? So after, and that's just with the conversation. So some of it's kind of like an undertone where they take you, what they say that they do for like for a hobby. If
Mm-hmm.
someone says I go golfing for a hobby, that already puts you in a different category.
Yeah, you definitely, yeah, you can put the pieces together, but so you're talking about playing detective, right? I
I
mean,
mean, kind of. It's kind of just, I think you don't even have to play detective. It just organically happens just when somebody's inviting you into certain parts of their life. Just what they, we talked about this too. Like, what do you drink? Are you drinking Evian or are you drinking Dasani? Uh, the fact that you even know Evian exists means you've probably had some sort of experience with that, or, whatever.
yeah.
Um, do you like to go to the boat show? Do you just have a fascination with boats, or does someone in your family have a boat? Um, so there's like things like that kind of reveal itself when you start learning about this person and you see what they like, what they don't like, what foods they're into, what they're not into. So it's not like I'm looking for it, it just reveals itself.
I think I'd be looking. I'm serious. I honestly feel like I don't. Things are so things are so difficult these days,
Hmm.
and obviously I'm thinking about myself,
Hmm.
assuming like I were to find myself single, like after 40, right?
Hmm.
Um, I would be really curious because in my case, here I am with children and a mortgage.
Hmm.
I'm not, out of college sleeping on an air mattress. I mean,
Right.
not that all college kids or new grads are doing that, but you get the picture.
Hmm.
And so is I guess, and I'm assuming the dating scene would be different, or is it based on how old you are? Or is it generally some of the same rules?
um if I had to answer that question, I would say it's a little of both. It's not very definitive, but it really is. Like, I think I think you get better at it when you're older than you do when
Better at what?
at the undertones, like picking up on the nonverbals,
Okay, okay.
versus when you're younger and you're not really maybe paying attention to that stuff. Maybe I feel like when I was younger and I was doing the dating thing, I was like so focused on like the connection, or so focused on the feelings, you
Oh
know.
man, you pay the price for sure.
Yeah, and then I wasn't looking at the other stuff. I just wasn't in that season. I was in the season where that wasn't uh at least I thought that wasn't that big of a priority. It was more
Mhm.
of like that connecting and those
All we
feelings.
need is love.
All we need is love. When you have love, you don't need anything in the world. And
Man.
that's kind of how it was when I was younger. And then as I've gotten older and have been dating, and you realize the harsh truths of life, maybe not as harsh as others, but you learn how the world works a little bit better. You're like, oh, like this connection. However,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, I'm still stuck on this. How much do you like disclose and find out? Yeah, you
mhm,
can read the vibes. You can
yeah,
see, where they dress or how they
mhm,
dress or where they take you.
mhm.
Um, and as an adult, yeah, I get that. But that all could still just be a facade.
True,
And
definitely.
they could be loaded up with debt. um they could be living in their mama basement.
Mm-hmm.
Again, which is not always a bad thing. You just don't know, but
Right.
it's like, I don't know. I feel like I would really need to know a lot at this stage, and I no easy way to say it.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I'll keep you posted on that. I do think, at least in this season, it's definitely a factor. I'm uncertain truly how much of a factor yet. I think I'm still figuring that out. But I know it's definitely something.
Okay.
um, but yeah, I think I'm also figuring that out too. Like, how people present isn't always what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like, as you know, like I've gotten older and doing what I do for a living, it's a little bit easier for me to pick out some discrepancies in your story.
Okay.
I guess that's the curse, and also the luck of being a therapist. You read into a lot of the
Yeah.
things that some people wouldn't, or you pay attention to family dynamics and you pay attention to these other things. So I feel like sometimes it gives me a slight advantage, and sometimes it makes me write things off really quickly.
Gotcha.
But I think in terms of finances, like, there's definitely always an undertone, 100%.
Would you be okay dating a guy who's unemployed?
Well, I have done that,
Oh.
and I would say not moving forward. I wouldn't be okay with that.
Okay. All right. So he must have a job.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's a
It,
pretty good start.
so
Um,
is there a certain type of job?
Well, that's funny you say that, because I didn't think so when I first got back into this dating world. And then I realized, in some ways it does, because, or maybe I just haven't met the person that changes my mind yet about it. But
Okay. Okay. So you're not
so
stuck on it.
I'm not stuck on it, but I do think that, I've been presented with situations where there's been like a date I've been dating, and I did have like a nice connection, had a great conversation with someone, and they had a job at a retail store. And I don't mean any offense by this. Let me just put it out there. But it's something I think everybody has personal preferences and their own reasoning why. Um, but it got to a point where the conversations, although they were nice, it was just one of those things where I could feel the dis I don't know what the word is, just the differences in where I was in my life and where this person was. Um,
So it wasn't so much about finances as much as what interests.
no, it was ambition, I think.
Oh, that's an interesting word. That, I mean, we've not touched on this. I can't believe we haven't. But so he was selling shoes or t-shirts, and he was okay with it.
Maybe complacent a little bit. Like,
Okay.
he was content and happy with what he was doing. And hey, if you're happy doing that, that's wonderful. I'm happy that you're happy doing what makes you happy.
Just not for
Um,
you.
just not for me. And I think I was really struggling with that a little bit, because I didn't want to think like, am I, I started being more introspective about myself. Like, is there something wrong with me for not being okay with that?
So then let me ask you this. Is it the
Mm-hmm.
job?
Mm-hmm.
What if he was in retail and he was bringing in six figures?
I mean, I feel like if you're doing that kind of a job, because I also did retail, if you're bringing in six figures, you've moved up.
You're working.
You're working.
Okay.
Even if they weren't making six figures, like, but they had a plan, like their plan was, to keep moving up, or whatever. This person also didn't have a college education, which again was something that I was like, oh, not everyone needs a college education and they can do really well. But I found that with dating and figuring out what I would like and what I wouldn't like out of a partner, I found that to be something that was something I did want, because I could have more, in my experience, more in-depth conversations about different things, or there was some more context to things. And so I realized then that I was like, I thought about myself and I was like, I did these things and I sacrificed different things to get here, and what that meant to me, and also holding a partner to that same standard. And so, granted, again, I know you have to consider not everyone starts at the same place you do.
True.
And during their lifetime may have some hurdles and things like that. So I realized that. But it was something that I hadn't really thought about until this time around with dating, where I was like, well, this does kind of matter to me, and what I can contribute to this, and how I think I'll be able to contribute to it in the future, and what I'm working on right now to make that happen. And then, doing whatever that is, like extra projects, or, having a second job, like whatever it meant to me, and not having someone that echoed that. And it didn't necessarily have to be six figures. It just had to be movement.
Okay.
And I felt like it was, and maybe this is just a weird way of thinking about it, or I haven't experienced enough people, but there wasn't a lot of movement in like people I was dating that were making less than me.
I see. So you wouldn't be okay supporting a broke boyfriend?
I tried that, didn't like it. So I know that's not something I want to repeat again.
Wow.
Yeah. And in some ways, when I had that happen, it was like, gosh, I'm doing all this stuff. Like, I'm trying to move my life into a forward direction, and this person's not really doing much of anything. And I want to see different parts of the world, but I can only do that if I want this person's company, if I pay for it.
And that you weren't willing to do.
And that I wasn't willing to do. I was like, screw it. I'd rather, stay a couple days longer, or eat a nicer meal than pay for you.
When I was in high school, one of the first girlfriends that I had, she used to like just give me money. And I'm in high school. I don't know what grade I was in, but I was like, wow, this is nice. She must really like me. And I said to myself, okay, let's just go along with it, right? And it got to the point where I think I realized it wasn't just about being nice. There were some ulterior motives there, and she had her own people on the side. It was high school, and she was older, which I think I liked that piece too. But I say that to say that if when you talk about supporting someone who is unemployed, there are some people who are okay with it and some people who aren't. But there's this element of almost power or control, almost. And so some people feel it when it doesn't exist, right? People are just being nice. They genuinely want to help you, and we've talked about that. But in hindsight, I realized that was what was going on in that relationship.
Yeah. I've had that. I've had a friend of mine have something similar happen. They weren't in high school, but they were in college, and it was a girl that he was dating, and she came from a wealthy family and would kind of pay for everything.
Be a sugar
And
mama.
yeah, and interestingly, his family was like, hey, you need to stick with this because you're going to be set for life.
Really?
Yeah. Even though, I think that at that time, that person was really on the fence about it. Like, there was a lot of things he liked about it. And I think maybe even the financial comforts of it and what that brought and the experiences. But it kind of, the actual connection between the two wasn't that strong.
Wow.
And so I feel like, that stayed longer because of the money. And then also that influence when you're young from your parents saying like, yo, lock it down.
This is, get her
This
pregnant.
is great.
Put a baby in there.
Before we hit record again, I was saying, like, I think in some ways it would be nice for the parents to not have to worry about that, or like enjoy the benefits of, being invited to someone's nice house for the holidays.
Right. Wow.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Man, mm-hmm. Listen, clearly I didn't put a baby in there, and nor did I put a ring on it. And I'm glad I didn't. But man,
mm-hmm.
I know my parents my mom especially would be like, oh no, leave that girl alone for whatever
mm-hmm.
reason. But my mom's never told me, oh yeah, stay with that one because they're loaded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've actually had some friends' parents tell them that on a guy's parents tell him that, and a girl's parents tell her that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if I had met Beyonce, my mom would have said that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So dating. Listen, I've been out the dating game. Dating. What's the word? So not exclusively, but what do you call it, Mia?
I don't know. The dating game, the dating
I've been
scene.
I've been dating one person for like almost 20 years now. So it's a little different for us.
Yeah.
But I always say I do not envy you.
You know what? In some ways, I hear that a lot. But honestly, some of my friends, I don't envy their marriages.
Whoa, touche. Okay. Well, there you have it.
I'm like, shit, I would much rather be where I'm at. I mean, I hear it so often. Like, I don't feel bad, or don't feel sorry, or whatever you just said. I've lost my train of thought. But
don't envy them.
You don't envy, or gosh, I can't. I don't know what I would do if I were in that situation. I think to myself, I really don't know what I would do if I were in your situation.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm enjoying this season.
Everyone's happy in their own corners.
Right.
Yeah. So listen, guys, if you're happy in your corner, single, dating, mingling, married, whatever the case is, if you got some stories to recount from years ago, or stories you wish to forget, before you forget, let us know. Tell us about
and
them.
Were finances involved?
No, I just assumed they were. Like
they always are. Let's be real.
I'm telling you. And Herdine, so quick story before we go. Herdine always talks about one date we had where, I prepared some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, being all romantic and whatnot. And we had lunch outside the library on the college campus in the grass, blankets, whatever, right? We did that. So that was nice and sweet in that season. But I got to tell you, as much as she liked it, I do not know that if that's all we were able to do, that she'd be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And
she'd want the wine and the charcuterie board now.
She'd want a little more, right? Maybe some cold pressed juices,
Yeah.
And cold pressed juices ain't cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And So I'm just glad to have gone through that when I did.
Yeah.
Can't imagine. But if you're in this situation, if this is the season that you're navigating through, let us know. Let us know. And if you found any value in this, let someone know. Help a brother out, help a sister out, you know, and just let them know, hey, we understand. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, hit us up on Instagram, come back, you know, replay, go back and share all the episodes. Okay. Relationship Renegade podcast on Instagram is where you'll find all of these, and just can't wait to hear your thoughts. I'm really intrigued and interested by other people's dating experiences and how they got where they are. So, but that's our show, guys. Thank you for spending some of your day with us, checking us out. Again, we don't profess to have all the answers. We usually end up with more questions. And so we appreciate you. If you've not heard it, we love you and can't wait to have you for another episode of Relationship Renegade. Bye now.